begin with the last slide that we looked at last week. And we are in Greece, and this is on the island of Crete. And uh, this image here is from a place called Knossos. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation of that. That's what it looks like to me, so that's what we'll call it.
Good enough.
And so this is on the island of Crete. This site was a major center of the Minoan civilization, and it's known for its association with the Greek myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. It's located on the outskirts of a city named Heraclea. We'll look at that in a minute. It's from the Bronze Age, which is 330 to 1200 BC, what they call the Bronze Age. And so this civilization would have been during that time period at some point. After Paul's release from his first imprisonment in Rome, he stopped at Crete to preach. And he left Titus there to continue the work. Let's take a look at that. Titus chapter 1, let's turn there. Titus chapter 1. Starting in verse 4. Titus chapter 1, verse 4 and 5. Here Paul says, "To Titus, my true child, in a common faith, grace and peace from God the Father and Christ Jesus our Savior. For this reason I left you in Crete, that you would set in order what remains and appoint elders in every city as I directed you." All right, so Paul was here. He left Titus here, and he gave Titus work to do. He's going to select and set in order the elders here. All right, and so the next few verses talk about the qualifications of the elders. Let's look at verse 10. So just after he's talked about these qualifications, he says, "For there are many rebellious men, empty talkers and deceivers, especially those from the circumcision, who must be silenced because they are upsetting whole families, teaching things they should not teach for the sake of sordid gain. One of them, a prophet of their own, said, 'Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons.' This testimony is true. For this reason, reprove them severely so that they may be sound in the faith." All right, so this quote here in verse 12 that Paul is talking about a prophet of their own. This is talking about a man named Epimenides. Okay, something similar to that. He was from the 6th century, and he was held in high esteem by the Cretians, and he, predicted some things that actually come to be. And so this would have been a person that they knew and a person that they thought highly of. And so Paul is quoting him whenever he's talking about the Cretians always being liars and evil beasts and lazy gluttons. And so that's not something that you want to be known for, is it?
No.
And so I would imagine that the church there in Crete had a lot of issues to deal with, right? And so Paul is leaving Timothy in charge of selecting elders and setting them in place and that kind of thing.
Wouldn't it be grand to see congregations in all these places that you saw, remnants over the
that would be
over
great.
the years?
Yeah, it would.
Heath took the students of Brown Trail on a restoration tour, and one of the places from Barton W. Stone, his congregation was formed in about 1850, and he said many of the descendants from that group are still worshiping on that site.
Yeah, yeah, I saw that. That was great. David sent that out if you haven't seen that in email. So it's a good read about the history that was going on there in that area with Alexander Campbell and how they were trying to get back
Restore.
to the original church.
Right.
Yes. All right, this is a drawing of what this Minoan civilization might have looked like, based on the ruins that they have found and are in place and the type of building. This structure probably would have been made of a combination of stone, masonry, rubble, plaster, and wood. Unlike the citadels or the fortresses of the mainland, there is no evidence of fortification here. And so the centerpiece of the palace was a large paved central court. And this courtyard here measures about 88 feet by 160 feet. So it would have been a very large area. And this was a very complex and organized city. And so you can see that just many years ago, that men were able to build these type of structures. So they weren't cavemen that didn't know anything, right? As
They could probably teach us a thing or two
sure,
about construction.
they probably know more. Yeah, exactly. And this is another artist rendering here of what that civilization may have looked like. I just thought I'd give you an idea of what they thought this area might have been like at that time. And these are the actual ruins there on that site from where that first picture was. So there was still quite a few ruins in that area as well from this civilization that far back. So they've been very, very well preserved here also.
Did they give any indication of how these ruins happened? Was there a invading army? Was there some kind of plague or something to wipe these people out?
What?
Maybe an earthquake or.
Yeah, I don't know. If they did, I don't remember. So I'm not sure. When you go on these tours like this, you have earbuds on and you're listening to your guide who may be to the back of the building in front of you because you're all kind of trying to stay together and you've also got hundreds of other people doing the same thing, and so you're trying to watch your step while you're trying to listen to what they're saying and keep up with the group, and there's a lot of information they're giving you. So they may very well have told us, but remembering all those things and keeping up, I started taking notes as we were going along there because I realized pretty quick, I'm not going to be able to remember all these things afterwards. And so each time we would get back on the bus after we had seen a site, I would take notes from what we were told there, some of the highlights. But unfortunately, that was a few days in, But this part of the trip is further in, But this is the city of Heraclion, Crete, and it is the port city, and it's also the capital of Crete. And so we stopped there, went into the main center of the city, and that's what this is here. And it was a big, bustling city, looked much like what you would see today. That's one of the streets there. And there off the city center, you just kind of have streets that go off different directions. And some of those streets look a lot like what you saw in Jerusalem or Istanbul. When you've got a little shop here, a little further, a little shop here, a little shop here, all down through there. And you can see all these streets are very narrow, and so there's no vehicle traffic.
What city is this?
This is Heraclion, Crete. This is the capital of the island of Crete.
In your travels, did you see any churches of Christ?
Other than the one that we went to in Athens, no. We were scheduled, originally this trip, we were gonna go on this trip originally in about 2020, I believe. And it got canceled, because of COVID. But originally, we were gonna worship at the church in Jerusalem. So I was really looking forward to that, but, the way this one was set up and scheduled, we weren't able to do that.
How many were in attendance were you with?
Like 40, 50, maybe? Did you see those pictures last week?
Yep.
Okay, that was about roughly what was in attendance. A lot of our group wasn't in that photo. There was only two of our group in that photo. So we had 21 in our group, and so you had, all those people in that photo and then 20 other folks.
So it wasn't all local people, there wasn't that many that went to church there locally.
Yeah, I would say 30 to 40 probably on a regular basis. Yeah. And it seemed like to me that maybe some people were traveling and doing it kind of like us today. You may not have all of your members there on every given Sunday because they may be visiting or traveling or whatever. Because I think there was one guy that he came in that hadn't been there for a little bit, and they were talking to him about his visit being gone. Bonnie and I did find some good gelato here. We were walking back toward the bus and we saw a little gelato ice cream place on the corner, so we had to try it out and make sure it was just as good as American. And it was good. We had a mixture of strawberry, lemon, and sour cherry. So we sat there watching people come and go in the city, while we ate that, because we had a few minutes before it's time to leave. All right, so I want to take you back to the city of Masada. This is near the Dead Sea. We didn't talk too much about that before when we were talking about that area, so I wanted to take you back there and give you a little more information about it. Masada is an ancient fortress in the southern Israel's Judean desert. It's on a massive plateau overlooking the Dead Sea, and a cable car and a long winding path climb up to the top of this fortification. It was built around 30 BC, and among the ruins are King Herod's palace. This would have been Herod the Great, okay, that built this. And the palace that he built sprawls over 3 rock terraces and a Roman-style bathhouse with mosaic floors. Although not mentioned in the Bible, Masada might have been where David took refuge on his flight from Saul. And we don't know that for sure. There are other sites that claim the same thing too. We remember Saul was upset with David because he knew David was going to overtake his kingdom. And so he was trying to kill David. And so David left and Saul's men were pursuing him. And so, we're told about that in the Bible, and we're told a couple of sites that he went to, but some people claim that this might have been one of the sites that he went to. And it would have been a good place, of course. You'll see why once we show up on top of it. But this is the ruins. This site was very well preserved also. This is a view from the cable car as we were going up to the top of this mountain.
Sure not a
Also-
ski slope, is it?
No. You can see right here, you see these two people right there?
Yeah.
That's a path that walks up to the top of that. It's a winding path. They offered us to go up that path if we chose to. We decided to go up the Skylift. Oh, and it was extremely hot there too. All right, so this is a view. I showed you this photo before as we were talking about the Dead Sea. And I wanted you to think of that from this point of view from Masada, this city. And we talked about last week some about this may have been the site of Sodom and Gomorrah and where that destruction took place here. You can see the different color right here, right? So that area, mostly ash. Okay. This was a model that they had up there on the top side showing what Herod's palace probably looked like there on the terraces down the side of this mountain. And Herod spared no expense on building his castles. And that was part of his legacy. He wanted it to be part of his legacy. All right, so one of the highlights of this visit to Masada was entering the large bathhouse complex, which was built by King Herod. The bathhouses were not only for washing, but also for relaxing, enjoying spa-type treatments, and for socializing. Private bathhouses were a luxury that were only afforded for the very wealthy, especially for those living on Masada in the middle of the desert where water was very rare and very valuable. The bathhouse is located south of the northern palace, which I'll show you in a minute, and has 4 rooms. The Romans would exercise in this courtyard before entering the bathhouse. The hot room floor has been partially reconstructed so that visitors can get an idea of what it would have looked like. 200 short clay pillars beneath the floor created an open space beneath the floor. The furnace would pump hot air into the space beneath the floor where it would circulate and create heat. The heat rising from the floor produced a Turkish bath effect, like a sauna. In addition, the walls were lined with hollow clay pipes, which were pumped full of hot air. When you exit the bathhouse, you can see where the furnace would have stood to warm the waters and pump hot air through a hole in the bathhouse wall into the area beneath the floor. And so this shows you what type of capabilities that they had engineering-wise to build these kind of things. And so we think our spas are good. Their spas were just as good. And we were also told there was like 4 different rooms. And so you had one room you went into, and that room was designed to cool you down and all this. Then you go into the next room, and like this one is like a sauna in that room. And you have 4 different rooms that are putting your body through 4 different atmospheres, I guess you'd say. And so, but this is the kind of knowledge that they had, even in that time. Here on the wall, you can see these clay pipes that they were talking about that this steam could travel through in order to create this type of atmosphere. If you notice, there's plaster on those pipes there. So those walls, even if they were rock, they would have been covered in plaster. And most likely a lot of paintings on those plaster areas. We saw different sites like that. And that's what this is here. This was one of the big bathhouse rooms here. This room was very large. And this corner here, you can see the plaster on the walls and the paintings there on the walls and that kind of thing, which is how this would have looked at that time. Some of the older movies that you see, you might see some of the Romans in bathhouses like this, big extravagant pools, And but what we were told in this room was that later on, different people came in. This place was not inhabited for many years, and then another civilization came in, and they needed a place for a bathhouse, but they didn't have the water or the capabilities to fill up this huge room, and so they just blocked off this little corner here in that room, and that was their little bathhouse. And so it just showed you the contrast between living like King Herod did and the common people maybe. All right, so this photo here is on the wall there is showing you kind of the firebox that they would have had, and how it came up through the walls and produced steam and heated the floor and things like that. This type of setup is what we use at TI with raised floor like that. The airflow comes from the ceiling and down through the floor, and underneath the floor is gathered back up and recirculated. And so they were doing this kind of thing way back then. Pretty amazing. So this was up on the top there of Masada. Walking through the areas, you can see, just how large all the walls were and how many different levels and layers there were up here on this site. So this is an overview of the top of this mountain of Masada. And here you can see that all these places are labeled where different things were at. If you look right here in the middle, you can see these number 15s here. That's where Herod's castle sat. So he had one level up here, one level up here, and then one level right here, like that model showed us earlier. And so you can see that this area right here would have been the pools. You had a smaller palace right here. You had another small palace right here. Here you had a Byzantine church. And here you had a synagogue. So I guess they were prepared for everything and everybody up there. But one of the main things I wanted to point out was number one, the cisterns, which is located right here. That's where water was taken in at for their cisterns. Remember, a cistern is an underground holding place for water. And that would be very common in that time. When we were in Turkey, we went to their cistern there that was underneath the city streets, the whole city, basically. And you went down there and it was just a huge cavern under there and just pillars, excuse me, pillars everywhere. And that's how they did the same thing there. They would collect water from different places and it would collect there and they would use that to provide water for the entire city. And so that's what he's doing here. And so these cisterns that Herod built were to provide water during the times of siege and also to fill his luxurious swimming pools and supply his bathhouses. The amount of water needed was staggering. There were several swimming pools on the top of the desert mountain where little rain fell. And the main bath complex was one of the largest in Israel. And there were several smaller private ones for Herod in each of his palaces. Since the floods were unreliable, Herod needed water sufficient for his family and staff. One scholar has estimated that if all the cisterns were half full, there would be enough water to sustain thousands of people for 10 years. The contrast between the surrounding desert and the abundance of water inside the fortress would have impressed anyone who visited this palace. They probably marveled at the vision and the ingenuity of Herod, something that he passionately desired. The water flowed into the cisterns cut into the base of the mountain on the western side. It was then carried to the top of the mountain and emptied into cisterns, which held more than 1 million gallons of water. The cisterns was originally a quarry that provided stone for the building of Masada. It had been noted that Herod frequently defied nature in his attempt to build a legacy for himself. Providing the amount of water needed on Masada was part of that legacy. Visitors to Israel are still amazed at the great vision that Herod displayed in his building programs. All right, comments about that?
Just comment about the seed ramp. Okay, so you mentioned the narrow winding path earlier, right?
Yeah.
Not many people took it, did they?
Not in our group, no.
Even at the Romans, that's why they built that seed ramp.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That would probably be a easy way to get away too if you needed to. But this was a pretty impressive area up here.
The last Jewish force that held it against Rome was there. How was they conquered?
They committed suicide.
Instead of becoming slaves.
Right. Yep. Yeah, they felt like they had to make their stand and not be taken. Right. They were the zealots. Right. So the Jewish zealots, they were all being captured, and they all made their way here to Masada, which was empty at the time. And they stayed there, and they vowed that they would never be taken by Rome, and so they all committed suicide, mass suicide. How many roads were there? Do you remember?
It might be less than 200, but I don't remember.
Okay, I was gonna, I saw some information about that, but I didn't include that.
What did they eat?
Those guys, I don't know.
I mean, they're there.
Right.
They had a
Of course.
market.
Of course, in Herod's day, you know, he's got plenty of people to take care of that. You know, they would be out, you know, getting food. But yeah, I mean, even during Herod's day, this would have been a desert. Yes, because it had been destroyed by God, right? And so there wouldn't be anything growing in that immediate area. It would have to be brought in. You know, from Jerusalem, I think was 13, 16 miles away. You know,
They didn't have a coverage bar back then, did they?
no, I don't think they did.
How long would it take to get to the top of that mountain if you walk?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Take a while, would it?
There wasn't any handrails on that walking path. So, yeah. All right. So we didn't go to the city of Corinth. We went to this site here, which is the Corinth Canal, which is near that city, but our tour didn't actually go to that. This is an artificial canal in Greece that connects the Gulf of Corinth to the Ionian Sea. It cuts through the narrow isthmus of Corinth and separates the Peloponnese from the Greek mainland, making this peninsula an island and creating an international maritime hub that transformed navigating in southern Europe. By cutting this path through here, the ships could come through here, and it drastically cut their time traveling to other areas, kind of like the Panama Canal was, right?
They cut that path through there
They did.
in ancient times?
1881 is when they did. The depth of this canal is 26 feet. The length is 4 miles. And if you, it's very hard to tell. There was a boat up there at the mouth there coming in that you can just barely see up there, right up here in this area. So, I mean, you would have to be a pretty good navigator to get through there, I would imagine. You don't have a whole lot of room on each side.
And there's different levels. They have these places where they can bring the water level up and down. What do they call it?
Walk.
Yeah.
Okay, so was 1885 was like, it was after or before Christ died or after?
It'd be after.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. But they still didn't have the modern machines like we've got today, and they cut this path in here. Pretty impressive.
I know, right?
died in 33 AD.
All right, so the city of Corinth was prominent in the first century. Corinth was the capital of Rome, the Roman province Achaia. It was a prosperous city also known for its immorality. Because of Corinth's sordid reputation, the new Greek word was coined called Corinthiazomia, which means to live immorally like the Corinthians. Acts chapter 18 tells of Paul's ministry in Corinth. During his second missionary journey, Paul came to Corinth from Athens, which was about 45 miles away. In Corinth, he met Aquila and Priscilla and worked with them in the tent making trade. Paul used the income that he earned to preach the gospel without relying upon support from other people. Paul preached in the synagogue every Sabbath. And when the Jews would not respond, Paul decided to take the message to the Gentiles. His ministry resulted in the salvation of both Jews and Gentiles. So the church in Corinth was made up of both. Paul ministered in Corinth for about a year and a half. During Paul's time in Corinth, opposition against him began to grow. The unbelieving Jews in the city brought charges against Paul before the Roman proconsul Gallio. But he refused to get involved in a Jewish religious dispute. Paul stayed a bit longer, but eventually moved on to Ephesus. Paul remained in contact with the Corinthian church through letters and personal emissaries, sending them warnings and instruction. In the book of 1st and 2nd Corinthians are just two of the letters that he sent to them to address issues and concerns. Paul's letter to the Corinthians make up his largest body of work directed to an individual congregation. These two letters address problem areas that are still often problems in churches today. We still teach from all those letters that Paul wrote to those churches because they still apply to us. We're still doing the same things wrong. And we still need the same correction that they need. Comments?
So that was dug 143 years ago.
They didn't have a whole lot of, well, I guess maybe steam engines or something that had some mechanical power. Most of it was done by probably horses and mules.
Yeah.
Or
Chisels, dynamite maybe, and just hard work.
TNT.
Those
Yeah.
walls look like that's rock. Is that rock or clay or
Looks like rock to me.
rock?
Pure rock.
How wide
And
you
there
say
might be
that?
some limestone or some other mixtures, I'm not sure.
How wide you say that was?
26 feet.
20?
No. It didn't say on the width, actually. Did it? 26 feet deep.
That's just the water level, right? It's not talking about the
Yeah, yes.
height of the
Yeah, that's the water level.
mountain.
Yeah, I don't have the width listed, so I don't know. It looks pretty narrow though, doesn't it?
It did look narrow.
All right, so last week we had a question about the size of the area that Jesus traveled to. James, you've been asking a lot of tough questions. But good ones. All right, so this is a map of Jesus' ministry in Israel. At the top of this map is Caesarea Philippi. So it is up here. Okay, that would be kind of the furthest point up here in that area. Okay, and then then at the bottom of the map, roughly, is Bethlehem, right in here. Okay, so according to Google, that's about 160 miles from those 2 points.
And he didn't travel that by chariot either, did he?
What's that?
He didn't travel that by chariot. He probably walked.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and the walking in that day, roughly, they say around 20 miles a day would be kind of the normal walking distance. And that's probably going to depend whether you're going uphill or downhill and what time of year it is. You know, it's completely during the hot part of the summer, they probably had to stop and rest a little bit more, right?
Say again the miles between Damascus and Bethlehem.
It was 160 roughly according to Google. All right, and there's discrepancies if you look at different places, but all of them are between 120 to 160 miles roughly. You know, and that would be straight through most likely. I guess maybe, I don't know if they took into account the path you would have to take on roads.
To give us an idea, from Beaumont to El Paso, something like 500 miles.
And so, also, the width, you see these cities here along this side right here, the farthest one being out about this far, and then you're going roughly over to this area. That's roughly 40 miles or so. Okay, so that would have been the area that he was generally teaching in. But you're still talking about 6,400 square miles. And we know that, you know, it wasn't just in everything in order, right? You know, because he went back and forth and here and there all the time. So listed on this sheet here is 33 miracles that Jesus performed. Was that all the miracles that he performed?
No.
Let's turn to John. John chapter 21, verse 25. Let's see what that tells us. John 21 and 25. Here he says, and there are also many other things which Jesus did, which if they were written in detail, I suppose that even the world itself would not contain the books that would be written. Okay, so this is just a very small sampling of what Jesus did and where Jesus went. So who knows how many miles that he traveled during those times. We know that that entire 3 years of his ministry, right, from the time that he was baptized and he started teaching and performing miracles, that entire 3 years up until his crucifixion, he was working. There was very little time for him to rest and catch his breath. So, good example for us, right? Take advantage of our time here on earth so we can work all of it. There is no retiring from Christianity.
In studying the life of Christ, you can see where it's divided in the great Judean ministry, the Perean ministry, and even up in Samaria.
Yeah. So this is telling us all these different things that took place at these different sites. It's a little bit hard for me to read on there. So this number 8 up here at the top left, that's the large catch of fish, Jesus healing a demon-possessed man, Sermon on the Mount, healing the sick in the evening, the centurion's servant, on and on. All those things happened in the area of Capernaum. Okay, and so that just gives us an idea. There is named on number 12, Jesus raised the widow's son. So I just thought that was kind of a little easier for us to kind of see the layout of the land and the sites that Jesus went to. Some of the things that he did while he was there. So sure that entire region was taught. We know that many people were coming to him, right? Anytime that people heard of Jesus being somewhere, everybody was coming together because they had heard stories about this man. And then, that's probably why Jesus told these people to go back. Because a lot of people wanted to follow Jesus from that point. Jesus said, no, you go home and tell the people what you've seen. Because that's just spreading the gospel even more, isn't it? He goes back to they go back to their home city and teach others. And, it's like the Samaritan woman at the well, right? Jesus told her all about her personal life. And she went back and told everybody in the city. Now everybody in the city's coming to hear him. So, pretty neat. Any comments?
Wasn't his first miracle that's recorded before he turned water into wine?
Yes, that was in Cana.
What age do you think he was then? Have any idea?
I would imagine 30.
He started ministry
Started
at
30.
30.
And he did all this in 3 years, didn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, he had to be moving pretty much all the time.
Yep.
Travel that much.
That's right.
Years.
That's right. It was hard for him to get out and just have quiet time to pray. That's why he went to Mount of Olives a lot. The Garden of Gethsemane. He was trying to get away and just talk to God. I mean, you think about us, and having a close relationship with your father. And, in your younger days, wanting to talk to your father and, that comfort, and just imagine how Jesus felt about God and want to spend time with him too.
Isn't it amazing how the crowds found out where he was just by word of mouth?
Sure.
Today, social communication, he's coming into the gate, he's coming around the corner. He wouldn't have had any privacy.
Right. But it was probably just as good in that day. I remember my parents and grandparents, they knew everything that was going on by the time I got home. So word got around. All right, so we're going to stop there. I hope this has helped you visualize some of these things that we've studied about, and hope it's been something that will help us in our faith.
Our gratitude, thank you.
Yes.
All right, guys, in our class, we will meet next week in our regular classroom. All right.